Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Beyond Excel webinar. Today, we're going to explore how you can move from spreadsheet chaos to confident, transparent, and streamlined reconciliation reporting. My name is Deon the Villiers, and I'm the Principal Consultant for Reconciler in Africa. For the past 4 years, I've been working with operations to improve the way they capture, process, and trust their data. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we will look into the challenges many sites face when relying heavily on spreadsheets, introduce you to Reconciler, our purpose-built reconciliation platform, and show you exactly how it can transform your month-end process. If you ever juggled multiple versions of the same report, chased down missing data, or spent late nights manually copying and pasting numbers, you know Excel can be both a friend and a foe. We're here to show you a better way. To take us through this journey, I'd like to introduce you to Rayleen Hargreaves, Principal Consultant and Product Owner for Reconciler at Datamine. Rayleen has worked with Reconciler for over 20 years, and for the past decade, she's been leading its development, working closely with sites worldwide to improve their reconciliation processes. She's passionate about building confidence in the numbers and turning reconciliation into a strategic advantage. I'll be back later, but for now, over to you, Rayleen.
Thank you, Deon. It's a pleasure to be here. So, spreadsheets, they've been the backbone of mine reconciliation for decades, but they can also be our biggest bottleneck. Today, we are going to show you how Reconciler takes you beyond Excel to real-time insights, automated processes, and a single source of truth that you can rely on. This session will be recorded, so don't worry if you miss something. You will get the link afterwards. Okay, as Deon mentioned, session should be about 30 minutes if I can keep myself on track. Okay. Before we dive in, here's where we're headed today. We'll start by looking at the Excel problem and why it's holding reconciliation back. Then we'll shift to a better way with Reconciler. You'll see it live in action, and finally we'll open the floor for any questions and answers which will be trimmed from the recording. For those of you that are not familiar with our company, this image shows part of the current software solutions that Datamine owns and supports globally. We have something for every part of the mining cycle, from exploration, geology, planning, production, laboratories, and sustainability. And today we're using Reconciler, which is part of our production portfolio. Okay, I just wanted to ask a few questions before we get into it. How many spreadsheets does it take for you to be doing your month end? Is it a couple? Is it a handful? Or so many you've lost count? Be honest here, because you won't be alone. While you're thinking about that, here's a bonus question. In those spreadsheets, how many tabs are you flipping between? 2 or 3, or do you feel like an Olympic level tab juggling competition? Another question I wanted to ask, and this is just to internalize and see what is your problem. We've looked at how many spreadsheets you might be wrangling, I guess, juggling. If we dig a little deeper, if you could wave a magic wand and fix just one thing in your month-end reconciliation process, what would it be? Is it the manual handling, spending those hours just moving data around? Is it the version control, like everybody's got a different version on their computer? The data accuracy, wondering if those numbers truly reflect reality? Or is it those reporting timelines and struggling to get everything done on time? Or maybe it's something else entirely. If you could pick one that would make the biggest difference for you, what would that be? How much confidence do you have in those numbers? I think that's what it all boils down to. It doesn't matter how many issues you've got. If you've got any issue, you are probably struggling with confidence in the numbers that you're reporting. Okay, we've just thought about the Excel burden that we have. What we want to now do is just zoom out a little bit and talk about the different types of reconciliation, because unless we're all talking about the same language, the rest of the webinar won't make much sense. So we'll start with mine reconciliation, which compares data across the whole mine value chain, and that is the focus of Reconciler. Then we have metal accounting, metal reconciliation, which happens inside the plant, and it's around the balancing of tons and grade for metal, and it's ultimately what mine reconciliation needs to line up against. And production accounting is Datamine's solution in this space. And then we have what we call mass reconciliation, which ensures that the physical movements across the mining chain, stockpiles, and the plant align, and we have Mine Market that can best manage mass reconciliation in the Datamine suite. It's important to note as well, though, that tools like Mine Market can also keep raw data visible so that variances remain clear when they integrate with a solution like Reconciler. We really do want to be comparing those raw data sets. So now we know that there's the three types of reconciliation that I refer to. But here's the problem. For many sites, all three types are often being managed in Excel. And that's where the cracks are really starting to show. So Excel may feel like the backbone of monthly reporting, but it's also the weakest link. And the truth is that spreadsheets were never designed to handle the complexity, scale, and traceability that reconciliation demands. And this is the dreaded Excel logo that you see at the end of the month, and then you're in a world of pain. Common pain points of Excel: version chaos, which is the right file, copy and paste errors, small mistakes that can live on unnoticed for months, the sheer volume of data making it really hard to work efficiently. It's nothing worse than having to wait a minute and with your fingers crossed, hoping that that Excel spreadsheet's going to open because of the volume of data that you're trying to process. The limited traceability, so no clear audit trail, so it's difficult to prove where the numbers have come from. And the critical knowledge bottlenecks, so those problems with Excel where only one person knows how to fix it, or only one person knows how the calculation was derived. You really don't want to have that problem on site. And here's a real example. In one operation, we found a number that had been hard-coded into a spreadsheet. It was hard-coded in a February by mistake, and it kept flowing into the reports over 6 months before somebody spotted it. And these are the risks that quietly sit in Excel until they explode into a real-world problem. So I've seen the risks and limitations of running Excel reconciliation in Excel, from version chaos to errors that slip through unnoticed. But the real danger isn't just inefficiency. It's what happens when confidence in your numbers starts to erode. And that's where what I'm calling the triangle of trust comes in. So this triangle represents the three critical points of your operation: geology with their models, mining with their plans and tracking of those actual movements, and the plant. You know, that plant product is the end result. So what happens when confidence in your numbers starts to erode? That's where this triangle represents the differences between the two and the three, and they're all held together with a core component of mine reconciliation. So why does this matter so much? It matters because regulators are watching. Investors are asking sharper questions, and your operational decisions from mine planning to plant throughput depend on having critical data, accurate data, I should say, and trusted data linking all three of these points together. If trust breaks down in one part of this triangle, it impacts the whole system. And if you lose confidence in the numbers, you lose the ability to make good decisions. And in reality, that means digging in the wrong place or sending the wrong material to the plant, misreporting to the market, or even making investment calls on flawed information. So that's the cost of a broken triangle and why reconciliation at its core is non-negotiable. So if losing confidence in the numbers means losing the ability to make good decisions, the question becomes, how do we stop the triangle from collapsing? And that's where Reconciler comes in. So Reconciler is built to eliminate the chaos of spreadsheets with a centralized, auditable, and automated reconciliation platform, giving you full confidence in your data. So what we have here is the material movement view, where all of your data is integrated and traceable. And below that, the dashboard view, refreshed to give you the full story in one auditable picture. And together they can automate the mundane, give you one truth, and help you check compliance to plan. So the real power is everybody working from one truth, one accurate source of information that builds trust between geology, mining, and processing. And it means you can check compliance to plan at any point. Are you mining where you should be? And more importantly, can you prove it? So if Reconciler can centralize your data and bring clarity to the reconciliation process, what does it actually look like when you make the shift from poor reconciliation to good reconciliation? And I've put them here side by side. On the left, you've got symptoms of poor reconciliation, and I'm sure some of these will feel familiar to you. You get monthly surprises that no one can explain, blame games that start because people are working off different numbers. You might see unexplained stockpile balances, version chaos, and hours wasted on manual data handling just to get the reports out. Good reconciliation. You have traceability, so you can follow every number back to its source. You gain transparency, meaning no more hidden adjustments or mystery calculations. Reporting becomes timely, so month end isn't a scramble. And everyone works from a single source of truth, building trust across the teams. And you achieve standardization. So the process isn't reinvented every month, it's consistent, auditable, and reliable. This is the shift from simply ticking boxes to truly trusted reconciliation. And once you experience the right side of this scale, it's very hard to go back. So that's what good reconciliation looks like in practice, but don't just take my word from it. Let's look at who's already made this shift with Reconciler. So it's trusted by some of the biggest names in the industry across every commodity. In precious metals, companies like Newmont, AngloGold Ashanti, and Evolution rely on Reconciler to keep their reconciliation accurate and auditable. In base metals, leaders like Alcoa, BHP, and Anglo American use Reconciler to bring transparency and trust into their reporting. For bulk commodities, companies such as Fortescue, Glencore, and Kumba Iron Ore turn to Reconciler to handle the sheer scale of their operations. And even in diamonds, they're using Reconciler to strengthen confidence in their production numbers. And there are companies these are companies, I should say, that are operating at the highest level of scrutiny with regulators, investors, and stakeholders watching closely. And their trust in Reconciler shows how critical accurate, transparent reconciliation has become in today's mining world. So what does that trust actually deliver at site level? And let's talk about the business value. So the impact of Reconciler really comes down to two things: reducing risk and unlocking value. On the left, you can see the risks without Reconciler. So I guess in the center there, without Reconciler, the key risks. And there are things like spreadsheets riddled with formula errors. There's tons missed through manual entry, balances that don't line up, no audit trail of changes, and variances slipping through completely unnoticed. And these risks all cost time, money, and credibility. Now compare that to the value on the right. By automating data flows, standardizing your reconciliation, and proving full auditability, the potential benefit to site is huge. Anywhere from $1 million to $3 million per year in savings and protected value. Now, these are risks associated just with the Excel side of things, and these are from a series of white papers that are available publicly. This does not even go into the unlocking value with issues that Reconciler will find along the mine value chain, and you go and fix them in your operations and then accredit that value back to your reconciliation process. So this is Excel only. And I should note that these figures are conservative and are representing cost savings mainly. So Let's see it in action. Yeah. So I'll walk you through the interface, show you some of the screens that we have, some stockpile trackings and some dashboards, and we'll have a look at some trends in data as well. Just go down. Okay. So I've just preloaded a few different screens here just to for time. So we're going to start off at looking at the material movement screen. So the material movement screen is bringing all of your data in across your movements, I guess, your material movements on the site. So we're talking about movements from the pit or from underground in mine production, and then where has that material gone? It's gone to an ore stockpile. Has it gone directly to a crusher? We've got stockpile feed, so we've got those ore stockpiles going to the crusher as well. And of course, we've got the crusher received being the weightometer, mine delivered being what haulage has delivered to that crusher. Now, this is just a portion of the mine value chain. This is sort of the mining side of things. We also have another screen that deals with the plant, and then we have another screen that deals with the transport and shipping side of things. So what you're looking at here is one data set that I have set up. And as a user, you can set up as many different data sets as you like. And I've called this total raw, but that's free text. I could call that anything I want. I'm choosing to look at a certain type of attribute. So I've got here the wet tons and its number of grades and some metal. And if I select on the actual metric itself, so the metric being say the mine production or the stockpiling, if I select that, it goes light blue. I am given the underlying data that has built this total number. So we're looking at 1 month's worth of data here for the whole entire mine site, and we're looking at the stockpiling metric, and we've got 1.3 million tonnes going out, going to those stockpiles. Because I've now selected that data set, I can drill right down, and I've got all of my source blocks or cuts that have gone to these different stockpiles, and I can see a raw source and what we call a resolved source. So if at any stage you had an unknown here in your resolved source, it would show you what you were trying to bring it in as, and Reconciler does not have that source ID. It does not belong in a model, or it does not belong in live in a mine plan. So it can't resolve it. It can't pick up the grade that you need to associate with that. You have got all of those grades that are available on every single movement, and that's the power of Reconciler. It's going to pick up your most current grade. And with business rules that we build with you, we determine where that grade is best to come from, whether it be the model, the mine plan, maybe it's a sample grade that's coming in a couple of days after the fact. We can actually load it up and replace it with the best grade available at the time. We are trying to move away from Excel, but we've also got the capability to export back into Excel. Okay, so what Reconciler will give you is confidence in the data that you're looking at. Data in here will not show if you've got data health issues. And we have a whole section around the import health and the data health. So there's things like making sure that the stockpile exists, making sure that material types exist, making sure that grades are realistic, that volumes haven't fallen below 0 cubic meters or 0 tons. So there's hundreds of different business rules that we're checking for across that mine value chain. You can customize any of the tables as well, so you can turn different columns on and off. And we've got batch name and contractor name here that aren't being used. I apply that. I've now got the ability to just have a short, I guess, a narrower table. And any of the screens that I'm happy with, I save them and they become available to me in this list. Now, we've got a private or a global list, and you can save it if you've got the appropriate permissions as a global. Otherwise, it's as a private configuration. So this was just one data set that we're looking at, just that raw haulage. I have got a couple of other screens that I wanted to share. The first one being the ore and waste misclassification. So here I've set it up to show me where I've had ore movements and where we've had waste movements across each of those different metrics. So here we can see ore and we can see waste in our total mined. Great. But we can also see that we've had 6,000 tonnes of ore go to a waste dump. and I can investigate that. I can find exactly what blocks they were. We can see here the different blocks of what material. So we've even had some material type crusher go to a waste dump. Now, in this case, this in-pit 1 stockpile may have actually been an ore stockpile. So maybe it's got the wrong material type associated with that particular stockpile. But it's very quick to see, oh, we've had some misclassification. I need to go and sort that out, rather than waiting until the end of the month and sorting it out then. So if I was in a mine production role in a live instance of Reconciler, I would be looking at this data either month to date or even just yesterday. Show me what happened on site yesterday, and it's very clear if I've had any haulage misclassifications. Just one more I wanted to show here was these are all actual movements that we're looking at, but you can absolutely compare to the plan. And here I've loaded 2 separate mine plans, a monthly and a weekly. And you can see that in the brackets behind each of those numbers, and apologies, my mine plans don't have grades, but you can see the difference between the first data set, which is that total raw, and the monthly plan, and then here that 4% difference between the first data set and that weekly plan. So it gives you a little bit of, I guess, compliance to plan. You're about 4% over on your, or under, I should say, on your haulage compared to your weekly plan. Again, you can drill down into any of those data sets that's available to you as well. So another really good comparison point to be able to check to make sure that you're mining to plan in the right locations. There are so many different, if I open another data set, there are so many different filters you can do on this data, okay? So you can set up as many different filters, as many different data sets as you want. I tend to have 3 or 4 showing because then the screen starts to look cluttered, but I can save as many of those different views as I want as well. So that was sort of just I just really wanted to drill right into your data and show how you can see your trucking movements. And ultimately that is the issue on site, is tracking those material movements easily and not having to do it in Excel. And that's what this screen is great for. Just moving on to the trend screen. So here, what we're looking at is I've pulled up a resource model, a reserve model, and a mining model. So mining model being like your grade control model. And I'm looking at this over time, and I've got some grades plotted on this screen as well. So what you can see quite quickly is that maybe August and even November looks like it's got much higher, I guess, higher number of material, higher tons volume coming out of the mining model compared to the resource and the reserve model. So we can actually just drill down into that a little. And I don't need you to follow too much other than to see how quick it is that I can drill into data. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to a month, and I'm going to say, just show me August. We'll just look at that August column. And I'm just going to change a few things. So I'm going to say, okay, I don't really want to look at my resource and reserve model right now, but I want to look at my mining model, but I also want to look at my actuals. So I want to see if what my mine production actually did. And I'm also interested in looking at the table. So the underlying data that is giving me this table. And look, I've chosen 1 month. So let's look at this by instead of time, well, let's look at this by pit or underground location. So now what we're going to do is see where the material is coming from. Now, this looks, I've got some beta material in the grade control model. I've got no haulage for it whatsoever. And then if I look at the delta, I've got more coming out of haulage than I have compared to the grade control model or the mining model. But you've got all of the numbers available here. I might want to do some stacking. So I might say, okay, well, actually, what was the material type like on those 2 areas? And I can see that I've got a lot of low grade coming out of that epsilon. So let me just focus on this delta pit. And I'm just going to load the delta. And then I'm going to flip it into looking at this by bench and level. And so now I'm just going to be looking at this delta, pit and level. And so we've got a couple of different benches that have come out, but this is predominantly the most. And now this is, if you know your own data, you can go straight to the bench. You can go straight down to that block level. I'm just keeping it quite high level, but it's very easy to start to see where the differences are. And here I would be saying that's probably around this medium grade that's giving me the differences between the mining model and that actual mining figure. So again, drilling down really quickly, and that's available for any of the data sets. So I just loaded some models and some mining movements, but I could also be bringing in the plans. They're all available. And again, pretty much every screen in Reconciler lets you compare against the plan. It's really important that you're following the plan. If you're not following the plan, your reconciliation is probably going to be a little out from what you are hoping for by the end of the month. Moving on, just to stockpiles. So back to looking at stockpiles, because again, it's another problem that we see with managing Excel spreadsheets is around your stockpiles. So again, some nice visualization about what's happening. And here I've just pulled up the stockpile analysis screen with just one stockpile, and we're looking at the coarse ore stockpile behind the crusher, purely because it's got lots of ons and offs, so it gives me lots of additions and removals to play around with. But we've got a closing balance here, and I'm looking at the wet tons. I could choose to look at the dry tons. Everywhere you could look at wet or dry or volume. And then I've chosen to look at the copper percent. Now, it's all available to pick and choose from. So you've got all of your different grades available to you. I'm also only looking at a couple of different attributes in the table, but I could be looking at all of these attributes, and everything that we bring in from the model will be available to look at it on any of the screens. The table that's below is what we call a summary pivot screen. So we're looking at balances and then additions and then reclaims across here. I personally don't like that. I would rather look at this as a summary table. And let's put on all of the grades and apply. And so what we'll get now is a list of the closing balance, the additions, and the reclaims in one column. Because what I like to do is say, okay, show me the additions, and I can see it for every day. And I could be looking at this by shift. I can see that the tons and the grades that have been sent to the coarse ore stockpile. Or I could be looking at the closing balance. Yeah, and getting those numbers from the top, and I'm looking at the closing balance day on day. So that's one stockpile, and there are different views that you can look at, different types of charts, but this is what I like the best. I did want to show you just if we were looking at this as maybe 3 different stockpiles altogether. I'll just load another screen. And here I've pulled in 3 different stockpiles, one called MG1. It's the same sort of thing. Now I'm actually in the mine, so I'm more on the ROM pile, the ROM stockpile, and I'm looking at this as an activity chart still. And I'd happen to be looking at dry tons. I could be looking at wet tons, but I'm looking at this with a movement table. So the difference now is that if I look at the additions, I'm going to see the source block that's gone to these stockpiles. So I've got now exactly what has been mined, and these numbers will be exactly as is on the direct feed or the metric on that material movement screen. So this is everything that's coming from the pit or the underground straight to this MG, where we're on MG1 and MG for stockpiles. Again, I've got this by shift instead of by day this time. But again, a lot of visibility, really easy to see if there's any issues. Yes, you can make an adjustment on a stockpile. We do not want to have a negative tons on a stockpile. You can do these through, what have I got here? The adjustment screen. So we've got a full audit history, and I've pulled up a lot of data here, but a full audit history of all of the different stockpile adjustments that are being made over time. And you can see that these are the user IDs. We've also got a bulk adjustment screen where you choose a particular day. And I'll just choose one and go here. And you've got a list of your stockpiles, and you can make either a volume adjustment or a tons adjustment, and you've also got a density, so you can make a density adjustment as well. We do carry the in situ density all the way through unless you actually update the density on a stockpile to be like your bulk density. Okay, I think that was the same screen. So just finishing up, I just wanted to quickly show that any of the screens that we save in the other modules, you can publish to a dashboard, and you can have as many different dashboards as you like. And you can see I've got quite a few here. And you can publish 4 different configurations to each dashboard. And then you've also got, if you're the owner, you can design that. So you don't have to have it looking like this. You can move things around. You can make them bigger, smaller. It's got the same controls as you've got in the actual screens themselves. So you can drill into data quite easily. You can do your export from here. So you don't need to go into the actual modules themselves. So that's one example. Scroll down, there's just the 4 on there. And then another one, so this was one I did around reconciliation. Another one I did was around mining compliance. And so again, some more familiar screens that I've showed. The material movement screen, the trend screen around weekly plan compliance. And then we've got another one on the trend analysis mine to weekly by bench. So they're just a few that I've added. And another one around mining analysis. So looking at what material has been mined and where has it come from, and if it's gone to stockpiles and where they may have gone to, and so forth. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the screens in Reconciler that can help you drill down quite quickly into your data and let you see what's actually happening. So we go back to the PowerPoint. Why am I telling you this? Why does it matter? I guess for me, it's the business impact. So it's what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get your month end done faster. You're going to cut those reporting cycle times from days down to hours because you're going to automate a lot of it, and you're going to be able to check your data on a daily basis rather than having to wait for the end of the month. You're going to be able to trust every number. Which will then free up your teams. It will mean that you're audit ready always. And as one geology superintendent said to me, Reconciler lifts the data veil and ground truths all production reporting. It enables routine data imports and validation, so issues are spotted early, supporting more informed decisions and better performance. And that's the business impact of reconciliation. It's faster, more confident reporting, and a team that can focus on creating value instead of chasing spreadsheets. So before we go, before I want to wrap up, I would like to take you back to what I call the confidence test. And there are 3 questions that every operation should be able to answer. And they are, can you confidently explain where your month-end numbers come from? And I'm not just talking about the final figures. I'm talking about every adjustment, every movement, every model to actual shift. Would you feel comfortable walking an external auditor or even a peer through the full chain of evidence? Another one, do planning, geology, and processing teams trust each other's data? And I mean fully trust each other's data. Or are you spending part of each month actually reconciling interpretations, defending your assumptions, or resolving conflicts between spreadsheets? And finally, if someone asked for a reconciliation walkthrough tomorrow, would you be audit ready? Could you pull a clear, traceable record of how tons and grades moved from source to report? If any 3 of these questions gave you pause, you're not alone, but it might be time to rethink your reconciliation approach. Because being able to stand behind your numbers isn't just about compliance, it's about confidence, accountability, and better decisions. This is the choice that every operation faces. And on the left, overwhelmed by spreadsheets, stress, and doubt. And on the right, in control, with trusted data coming out of Reconciler and confident decisions. Reconciler does make this shift possible, and it moves you from chaos through to clarity. And on that, I will hand over to Deon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rayleen. That brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to think differently about reconciliation. We've seen that reconciliation isn't just about ticking the boxes, it's about trust. Trust in the numbers, trust between teams, and trust that your reporting will stand up to scrutiny. So thank you again for your time and engagement today. I encourage you to take what you've seen back to your teams and think about what it would mean to have a complete confidence in your numbers. Have a great day and happy reconciling.